We're gonna go live. All right, looks like we are live. Rob, good to see you again.
Great to see you.
Always a pleasure to have you. So let's see, if you can hear us out there, let us know. Oh yeah, it says Zara, viewers still waiting on your first stream. Yeah, we're starting back up right now. So we'll basically be doing this all day long. We'll be probably every hour or so, or every on the hour, we'll start another stream. Probably take a short intermission in between so we can set it up. Get it set for YouTube so you guys know we're going to be doing the stream. We'll put it on Headphone so you know it's coming up. But pretty much count on us streaming pretty much consistently for the most part all day today till they close the CanJam down, and then also most of tomorrow until about 3 or so, because I think I have a panel I have to be on where we're going to ask the reviewer. I don't even like to call myself a reviewer because I don't like to think of myself as a reviewer. I'm just a normal guy that likes to listen to music, and I like to give impressions on things and what I feel about them.
That makes you a great reviewer.
That's just what I am, and then also the facts about some of the technical things that they do and the specifications. Like, that's kind of what I do. So anyways, so let us know, is the audio still good, Zaram? Thanks for being here with us, buddy. Appreciate you. So let us know if the audio is still solid, and we will get rocking and rolling. Give it another second or two. I mean, it should be good. It shouldn't have changed much from the last. We are on a noisy showroom floor live from CanJam, so you will hear a lot of background noise going on. But other than that, let's rock and roll. So I think the first thing we want to talk about is this awesome little device right here. And for those of you who don't know, Rob's like a wizard of the audio domain, right? I don't know how else to put it. He's a legend and a wizard, and he works with Chord Electronics, designing and putting together some of the best sounding DACs in the world. So talk to us about Mojo 2.
Well, yeah, Mojo 2, we launched it, must be about 18 months ago now.
Yep.
It's been around for some time now. And thankfully, Chord can actually produce the product. Because we had such huge problems with COVID.
My gosh,
and getting hold of parts, and FPGA prices just went absolutely ballistic.
Through the roof,
Now they've come down,
and you extended that though. You guys are beautiful. You extended discounts to your customers because prices come. No manufacturers do that, guys and gals out there. That was, when I heard that, I got I was like, that's my beloved Chord. They're taking care of that. That was awesome.
We try to be reasonable.
It was awesome.
Things are priced on the bill of materials price, not how much we can get it for it on the market.
I love that.
And it's about performance, and it's about the bill of materials price, and that's how products get priced out. Of course, when I was designing Mojo, I had to stick within a budget.
Of course,
and, that was quite hard work. But Mojo's the exception, because normally I just pick a performance target.
Right.
And I'll select a certain power supply, select a certain, I know this is going to work
Shoot for the stars, basically.
And then shoot for the stars.
Yep.
And then the price will be whatever it comes out to be.
Yep.
And when parts go up in price, and
they do, always.
We were seeing prices go to a factor of 10 on some of the FPGAs.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
Completely crazy. And you put in an order with your distributor, it would be accepted, you get a delivery date, the delivery would be set for a year's time, you turn up the year, and they turn around and say, no, you're going to get it next year. And it was
this is all pretty much since COVID. It got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, it was just unbelievable how badly we were being treated. And in the UK, Chord get through a large number of FPGAs.
Oh yeah.
We are the biggest users of Xilinx FPGAs through distribution in the whole of the UK.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know what FPGA, sorry, I'm stuttering my words. So Chord and Rob don't build DACs off of a typical chip that you would find in other products. 99% of manufacturers out there are using an off-the-shelf DAC that they then take and implement it into their product. That's not the way Chord does it. So part of the secret architecture, besides this man's beautiful brain over here, is that FPGA technology and how it's implemented. So for those of you that are not familiar with that.
What an FPGA is something called a field programmable gate array.
Yeah.
And what you can do is you can design any digital circuit, as long as it will fit inside the device.
Right.
and then create your own chip, create your own design.
Right.
And I've done semiconductor design where I've designed silicon chips, working for major semiconductor companies as a consultant. And my design path is the same. You design in Verilog and simulate it, prototype with an FPGA, and then they create an ASIC and or create a chip. Or in our case, with Chord, we can create a product.
Right.
And the beauty of it is that you can do things that you would never, ever be able to do in a chip because it would be vastly too expensive.
Right.
So one of the designs I was working on, the company had spent $10 million on developing a chip, and we went to the board, presented the case for this new design after spending $10 million.
Oh no. Oh no.
And they turned around and said, no.
Oh no. I was afraid you were going to say that.
We're going to scrap this whole thing. We're going to write off the $10 million.
Oh, jeez.
Unless we can save 5 cents.
5 cents?
5 cents.
Well, I guess because they're in their mind, they're thinking over the amount of units that they're going to sell, that 5 cents adds up.
5 cents.
Yeah.
So we trimmed the size of the design and got the size of the die down.
Right.
And it went into production.
Okay.
But that delayed things by 9 months to doing a redesign. But that just illustrates that because you have to sell hundreds of thousands of devices, you need to make sure that the cost is kept as low as possible.
Right.
And you're designing to the minimum performance that you can get away with to keep the cost down.
Right.
With FPGA design, you can do what the hell you like.
Right.
Because you can have millions of gates and millions of transistors.
Right.
It costs you quite a lot in terms of part cost.
Yeah.
But who cares? Because we're in an expensive, high performance category.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter that
Well, and this isn't that expensive for what you're getting.
It's not that.
I mean,
expensive.
for the price, this is for my personal preferences, I should say that, for my personal preferences, because somebody will disagree and have their own preferences, but for the price, this is the best DAC on the market for that price.
Yeah.
And actually, it shoots above its price in performance.
It really does.
If we're being honest about it.
I often used to joke that, well, it wasn't a joke, it was meant as a serious comment. If we put a Mojo 2, or in this case it was about a Mojo, into a huge box with lots of copper and made it really fancy, and you got exactly the same performance, and sealed everything off so you wouldn't know what was inside, it would sell at $100,000.
I mean, it sounds fantastic.
Because of its performance level.
And then also the control. So the amount of control. So I own the Hugo 2. We were talking about this before. I own a TT. I'm a bit of a Chord fanboy, I guess you would call me. I own a Hugo TT2, a Hugo 2, a 2IO, a To-Go, and a Chord Annie I drive speakers on my desk with. And I reviewed this though, and one of the things that I love about this, so like with the Hugo 2 or TT2, you have filters you can choose from based on your sound preferences. I know you love filter 2, and so I try to review everything with, or get my impressions with filter 2. And then I also will play around though based on like if I have an extremely like analytical amp, maybe I go to filter 3 because then the synergy sounds a little better, right? It's a little softer, right?
Yeah.
So, but with this, you've got like a vast amount of control. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So on the EQ, what I found was that more part of my testing process is to use a signal at minus 301 dB,
right?
Which is ridiculously small. There's no
inaudible.
way, completely inaudible. Yeah. You'll be struggling to hear minus 100 dB,
right?
Unless you turn the gain up.
Sure.
So it's completely inaudible. The point is, the quality of that signal, if it's slightly wrong, the brain can perceive it.
Sure.
And it's because the brain relies on amplitude of signals you can actually hear to be perfectly reproduced.
Right.
And if the amplitude and the phase is slightly wrong, the brain can detect it. And when it detects it, your soundstage depth gets compressed.
Oh.
You can't hear the details,
right, which is so
you can't
important.
get the depth.
Yeah.
And the thing about EQ is it uses something called infinite impulse response.
Okay.
And what an ideal infinite impulse response filter will do is you'll put in an impulse, put in an event, and it will continue to process that forever.
Wow.
And
okay.
it will get smaller and smaller and smaller, and it will do it forever.
Right.
What happens in conventional filters is that it'll get to a point where the numbers are so small it no longer resolves it.
Right.
So it just shuts it down.
Okay.
So the infinite impulse response becomes a finite response.
Right.
So normally that's set to about minus 140 dB, minus 150 dB.
Right.
What that means is that for very small signals, the filter stops filtering.
Ah, interesting.
And the amplitude is wrong,
Right.
and the phase shift, because the filter always creates a phase shift,
Yeah.
the phase shift is wrong.
Right.
And when you
messes
hear
it up,
that,
yeah.
that messes up the detail
Yep.
resolution, it messes up the depth.
Timing,
because
probably
of-
everything. It probably affects
everything,
it all.
Everything
Yeah.
gets messed up.
Yep.
The other problem with standard EQ is it uses 64-bit floating point
Okay.
on your PC or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
That's got noise floor modulation, and even though that noise floor modulation is very low, it's around minus 300 dB,
Right.
you can still hear that
Right.
in terms of it sounding brighter and harder than it should do.
Yep.
And you can do a simple test. You could get a graphic EQ, set everything to 1 dB plus
Okay.
across the whole bandwidth, reduce the volume by minus 1 dB, and then listen to it. And does it sound the same as when you make it
that's,
zero?
That's smart. Yeah.
And you can hear quite a big difference.
Yeah. Okay.
So I knew all this was going to be a real
Something you
big
have to
issue.
address. Yeah.
Something to address. So with Mojo 2, I developed my own custom DSP core. So this has got 104 bits,
Ooh.
and
Significantly
it's
more.
noise shaped, and that's important, the noise shaping. And it runs at 768 kilohertz or 705
Yeah.
kilohertz. So the 705, 768 kilohertz noise shaping, the noise shaping is really important. Because when I was talking about the impulse response getting smaller and smaller and smaller,
Right.
it doesn't lose that information. When it gets well below the noise floor,
Right.
the noise shaper remembers it and it gets processed. So when the levels get vanishingly small and below the 104-bit resolution of the DSP, it's still there. It gets remembered and it gets popped up and it's buried inside the noise.
That's awesome.
So it becomes a true infinite impulse response.
Well, and you can hear it because
You can hear it, absolutely.
I have played with EQ, parametric EQ in Roon. I play with that a lot, and then and then there's other manufacturers that use filters and stuff. What I've noticed with this is you don't get any distortion of the signal when you're
Yeah.
adjusting when you're playing with the settings in it,
Soundstage
and
doesn't
it
degrade.
doesn't degrade it. And
Yeah.
usually most EQ is a compromise. You're
Yeah.
degrading the sound some which is why I love tube amps so much, right?
Yeah.
Because you kind of playing with an analog form of EQ in a sense,
Sure,
right?
sure.
But I think that what you've done is create something that gives you that pure signal and sound quality without having to muck it up
Yeah.
with traditional EQ.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that the EQ, the DSP core does, is does the volume control,
Right.
and it does crossfeed.
Yes,
And
which is awesome.
crossfeed is so important. For me, crossfeed is absolutely essential.
Makes it more speaker-like when you're
It
listening.
makes it more
Yeah.
speaker-like, and if you're listening to an old Beatles recording from the 60s when they tended to do RCR, left,
Yes, right, yep.
center,
Yep.
mixing, it's
Yes.
so annoying.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it's
So-
so annoying.
so, like,
So
singular
making
dimension, yeah.
Making it come closer is much better.
Yeah.
And it opens up the sound stage when you engage the crossfeed, so that depth is better.
Right.
So particularly when you're listening with headphones.
Which is critical. I mean, and that's one thing about Chord DACs in general that I am. To me, soundstage is really important.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's one of the biggest things I value in both my speaker listening as well as headphones. And and if a headphone has too collapsed of a soundstage, or there is no depth to it, and you don't have crossfeed, it's just not as good for me. And there's times I like a little intimacy, but then there's so intimacy and
Well,
so
you want both. You
Yes.
want when the vocalist is close mic'd,
right.
you want it to be
You want to know
bang.
that. You want to know
wanna
that. Yeah,
hear
you want
that.
to hear it. Yep.
And when it's distant recording, an organ in a cathedral and it's 200 feet away, you want it to sound
Exactly.
200 feet away. You
Exactly.
want to have that variation in depth.
Yep. The accuracy.
And it's
Yep.
completely about accuracy.
Yep.
And we just don't get that with reproduced audio.
No.
And that's the thing I noticed when I first started getting involved in high-end audio when I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
Why are things so flat?
Yeah.
Why can't we get that sense of depth?
Yeah,
that you can hear
because
naturally?
turntables can do it. Records
Well,
a little, right? Depending on the
direct-
cartridge,
direct-
obviously. It
Direct
depends.
cut recordings were pretty good.
Yeah.
But in those days, when I was 16, I was listening to direct cut recordings. And
I see what you're saying.
You
Yeah.
know,
It depends obviously on the
weren't-
recording.
It was
yeah.
still nothing like live sound.
Yeah.
This is the thing that's always bugged me. Why is reproduced audio so poor at reproducing depth in a convincing way? Often when I listen to a track, if it's got good depth and you can hear it within a few seconds of playing it, and assuming there's depth encoded in the material, of course, like an orchestra or something.
Right.
If it sounds flat, you know it's going to be a poor recording, and you get that instantly, because everything else will be wrong.
So this has got to be part of the secret sauce of Mobile Fidelity's digital to analog signal process, because there was this big thing, right, where Mobile Fidelity, it was supposed to be an all analog thing, right, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, it's not all analog, they're running DSP. But when you listen to a Mobile Fidelity record, there is some depth to it, right? So they must be doing not your process, but something to try to create it. I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, you can always add reverb to make.
There's got to be something going on.
The trouble with adding reverb is that, the thing when it's close mic'd will now
it goes away. Yeah.
So
it's not accurate anymore.
It's not accurate. So it's about variation. And my whole systematic approach to listening is listening to variation.
Right.
So if there's variation in pitch, dynamic, timbre, space, if you get more variation, you're on the right track.
Okay, I like it.
Because you don't know what you're listening to. You don't know how it was put together.
Right. Nobody really knows for sure.
Nobody really knows for sure.
Except for the original artists, which may not be alive anymore in a lot of cases.
And not only that, the reproduction equipment is gotten a lot better.
Yeah, and the old
them.
stuff, yeah.
When I was first listening to the M scaler, and I was hearing the soundstage opening up, and I was thinking, the guys in the recording studio did not hear this.
Oh, yeah.
If they were recording at 48 kilohertz, they did not hear this at all.
Speaking of recording studios, didn't you guys just have something pretty fantastic happen with Atlantic Studios? Let's talk about that.
So a couple of days ago, Tom went there to do some interviews with the recording engineers.
Okay.
There's 4 recording engineers. They just bought some DACs and some Mojo 2s, and they've been running it for a year or so, I guess.
Okay.
And I like to come out early so I can get over the jet lag and hopefully talk sense rather than nonsense because of jet lag.
Sure. Yeah.
So
adjust and get it. You get adjusted a day or two.
So he said, "Do you want to come along?" I said, "Yeah, it'd be great. Go around the studios and see what the guys are thinking." And I was kind of expecting the usual thing with studios where they'd say, "Yeah, it sounds very good. It's very transparent. We like it. Blah blah blah." And that would be the end of it. They were real fanboys.
Nice.
And
as they should be.
All young guys. And I think the problem with older people, people in their 50s and 60s, Grammy Award winners, they want to reproduce the sound they heard in the studio 30 years ago. Wow. And what we're trying to do is to reproduce the real sounds.
Right. Yep.
Not what they heard.
Yeah, 20 or 30 years ago. And how do you even remember 20 or 30 years ago?
Well, you do.
Audio memory is a little bit,
I don't know. I disagree.
You think so?
Yeah. I recall a time when somebody came to me with a set of headphones, and it was at a CanJam.
Yeah.
And the next CanJam, a couple of months later, he came to me with a set of headphones, and he said, "Listen to them." And I said, "These don't sound anything like the way they did when I heard them for 30 seconds 2 months earlier."
Yep.
And he said, "What?" Yeah, he was completely shocked.
Right.
He said, "Well, they're the same headphones." And I said, "No, they sound different. There's something wrong about them. Something's changed.
Yeah.
Something's off." So he came back a few hours later. Cables were wrong.
Yeah, cables.
I've changed the cables.
Cables make a difference. People say they don't, but they do.
I've came to change it.
Yep.
I said, "Listen to them. 30 seconds. Yeah, they're the same."
Yep.
So
Or even pads. The pads can
the
pads can
the
wear
pads
down,
make
and
a-
that can change the
makes-
sound over time too.
How you're cupping to the ears and all that kind of stuff. That
100%.
makes a huge difference.
Yep.
So even though it was, a 30-second thing from several months ago, my memory could remember that it was something that was wrong about
you
that.
are an audio wizard, though.
Well,
us mere mortals,
thank you for saying that,
mortals
but-
may not be able to remember. But the
I
meeting,
did surprise myself.
so the meeting with Atlantic Studios, that's huge.
Oh, it is.
I mean, that's
It is.
huge for you
It
guys.
is. It is. And at the end of the interviews, and we'll be publishing the interviews online,
Cool.
and I'll be posting about it when they've edited it. One of the points was that they were doing a mobile recording off-site with Ed Sheeran.
Oh, okay,
And they were using Mojo 2. They always use Mojo 2.
Yeah, for portability.
For portability.
Yeah, makes sense.
They also use Mojo 2 in the main studios when they don't have access to Dave.
Okay.
And they prefer Mojo 2 to any other DAC when you're doing it. And
That's
one
huge.
of the reasons is soundstage depth.
Yep.
One of the guys said it just soundstages properly,
Yep.
and they can hear what's wrong with the recording immediately.
Yeah.
And it's so transparent,
Yep.
and yet it's transparent but very refined.
Yep.
And they can hear what's wrong. And when they're making a subtle adjustment, it's immediately obvious what they're doing.
Yep.
So it's improved their efficiency in getting the job done and improved the performance.
It's one of the same reasons why I like to give my impressions off of Chord electronic stuff, because of that. Because when I'm changing my amplifier, I can hear how everything
matters.
is affected.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's
And
a bit wishy-washy with other ones.
The other funny thing about it is I've noticed that as I've improved the products, like Hugo, Mojo 2, Hugo 2, Dave, headphones sound different.
Yeah.
And you can hear what's wrong with the headphones much more easily and readily
It's true.
than before. And sometimes people plug in a particular headphone into a Dave compared to what they were using before, and it doesn't sound right. And they say, well, it's Dave that's wrong.
Well, yeah, maybe look at how it was manufactured, the headphone.
It's time to look at your headphones, because Dave can't reduce the problems that the headphone has got. You need to try a different headphone. Anyway, going back to Atlantic, that when we'd all finished and done the interviews, it was all great fun. One of the guys came up to me and said, "Where do you get the magic fairy dust to put into the
That's awesome.
into the DACs?" And I said, "I've been grinding it out for 40 years.
Yeah, exactly. This is your life's work.
It's my life's work, and it's about advanced scientific engineering, trying to understand what the technical parameters are. Doing this crazy. I mean, if you talk to an engineer and say, I'm making this work to minus 301 dB, they'll just tell you, you're an effing idiot. Because nobody can hear that.
Right.
It's complete nonsense, and you don't need to do this kind of thing. You're crazy.
Right.
And if somebody had said to me 10 years ago that I'd be doing this, because at that time I was saying 200 dB was all you needed to do for a noise shaper, I would have agreed with them.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you know nothing unless you listen.
Right.
Unless you do a carefully constructed, objective listening test, you know nothing.
Sure.
And then when you evaluate a performance, something that's wrong, evaluate it, listen to it, reduce it, and listen to it, reduce it, and listen to it, then you get to the truth of the matter. And that's something that I don't think any other designer does, because they either listen and play around with the sound, or they're technically based and they don't listen.
Right.
And
they're just off the measurements only, basically.
I'm technically based, but I do a lot of careful listening.
Gotta have the listening. I mean, that's the whole point of this hobby
It's enjoying music.
activity is enjoying the music at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I have heard that in other products. I won't obviously name any products, but I've heard other implementations of DSP or just how they implemented the DACs. And sometimes it's a head scratcher for me. I'm like, what was this person thinking? Like, the bass is all wonky. It doesn't sound right. Like, it sounds very flat. It doesn't sound right. And so I get it. It makes sense. Let's see if there's any questions, because I think there's a few, and I don't want to forget about our viewers. Okay, let's see. The first one was from Will C. Thank you for this question. What headphone pairings with the Mojo 2 are standouts for you, Rob? What do you like as far as headphones with the Mojo 2?
Oh, okay. I'm a big fan of Dan Clark.
Me too.
So
especially the Expanse was, and now I'm listening to the Carina.
Okay.
The electrostatic. Oh my gosh.
I've not heard that one yet.
You got it. Check it out. He's got it here.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of stealths. So one of the things that I've been doing is doing my own recordings.
Right.
And that's partly so I can test the A to D converter that I'm developing, the Pulsar A to D converter for pro audio market and also for the domestic market.
Okay.
But the beauty of doing your own recordings, you know what it sounded like live.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
You know what the sound of the microphone is,
Yes.
the cables you're using, the sound of the A to D.
Yep.
You then can evaluate the performance of the DACs.
And you can replicate that.
And replicate that.
Yep.
And the headphones. And there was a kind of curious thing where I used to think that stealths were a little bit too bright.
Sure.
Because compared to my B&W loudspeakers, which are much warmer,
Right.
they are bright.
Right.
But the stealths are much closer to the original sound, the live unamplified sound,
That's cool.
than the B&Ws are.
Right.
And there's no loss in depth performance as well. So you can hear things with headphones that you can't hear when you're listening to loudspeakers.
Right. Oh yes.
So
for
that
sure.
was quite mind-boggling, really, because then suddenly I could hear the thickness and the softness in the bass, the heaviness in the bass, and I know that's not right.
Right.
And you're thinking, this headphone is actually more accurate than my loudspeakers.
Right.
And it changes your perception.
Yeah. Well, and the technology he uses in those headphones, the meta technology.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's a big part of, I think, his secret sauce to his accuracy of his latest iterations of his newest headphones.
And I went around their factory, and one of the things that they do is they'll have a stack of 100 different drive units, and each one will get calibrated.
Yeah.
And then they'll match one to one of the 100.
Yeah, and it's within like a very small. I can't remember, but it's a small.
That really makes a big difference
Yes.
to soundstage, to how accurate the lateral presentation is. One of the things we're doing when we're doing recording is listening underneath the microphones, and then when the orchestra had finished, doing the playback.
Right.
And the lateral accuracy, left to right accuracy, is identical to live sound.
Wow.
Because live sound is actually not that accurate from left to right. There's a slight roundness. Because I mean,
sure.
a cello is quite a big instrument,
Right.
and the source of that instrument is not just the strings; it's the body of the instrument as well.
So the wood, everything makes a difference.
It's not that sharp.
Yeah.
But it was as accurate as in terms of placement from left to right.
Right.
Depth, of course, it wasn't as accurate.
Sure.
And this is where my A to D, I'm hoping, is going to solve that issue. Where we're going to get depth sounding like,
Proper depth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. For me too, I mean, honestly, I guess, Will, I would say, as long as the headphones can be driven from the Mojo 2, which is quite a few.
There's a lot of headphones.
With the ability to adjust the sound and in a different way that is not typical EQ, it pairs so well with so many different headphones. I guess is kind of was my take on it from when I got to spend a like 30 days with it or something. So let's see.
I'm a bit of a Dan Clark fanboy.
I am too.
I mean, there are really good other headphones out there.
Oh, there is. There's tons.
But there are also some really poor headphones out there that have got good reputations.
It's true.
But I do like Dan Clark.
All right, let's see. What headphones pairing? Okay, we already did that one. All right, here we go. Any plans to address the steep learning curve with a Chord Poly?
That's not my project.
Yeah, I spent a little bit of time with a Poly, but I don't know. I don't know the answer to that either. So sorry about that, Will. Can FPGA Oh wait, here, let me put it on the screen so I don't have to squint because I don't have my glasses on. Can FPGA simulate the so-called harmonics MTH of tubes,
myth.
Or is the tech already warm on its own? I guess that was supposed to be myth. Yeah.
So that's an interesting question. So warmth is about a number of different factors, and it's also about timbre variation as well. Because what you want is rich instruments to sound rich and soft.
Right.
Like a saxophone sounding rich, and you want bright instruments to grab you by the throat.
Like a trumpet or
like a trumpet, really hitting hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So you want that variation, but making it's possible to use distortions to make things sound brighter and harder.
Right.
It's possible to use distortions to make things softer and warmer.
Right.
It's also possible to remove those distortions and for things to sound soft and warm and bright and fast and sharp. My job is trying to do both.
Right. So it appeals to everybody, essentially, in a way.
So that you can get the natural variation that you get with live unamplified music.
Because that's the way it is when it's happening.
That's the way it is.
Yep.
So I think with current technology, we can portray warmth correctly.
Yeah.
In that you can get a saxophone playing and it sounds like a saxophone.
Right.
But what we're still not very good at doing is speed. Really sharp, fast sounding things.
Yeah.
So
Like a violin, the speed of a violin, the attack of the violin.
The attack, sort of very fast rhythms like you get in electronica.
Yes.
Or when you go to a live band and got your ear defenders in.
Yes, you've got to protect your hearing, absolutely.
Things can, if you hear a percussion, a drum kit up close without any mics, things are really fast and
fast.
Sharp.
Yep.
And reproduced audio softens those transients.
Yes.
So we need to be able to solve the depth problem and to solve the speed and the impact problem
all at the same time.
All at the same time.
It's a big task. Yeah. Very.
Excuse me.
No, you're good. Let's see. How many?
Just going back to the other question.
Oh yeah. The warmth of tubes, let's add it back up again.
Yeah. I did actually do a compression circuit in Verilog a long time ago. And one of the things I could do with that is to change the variables so that it would create just second harmonic distortion, and only second harmonic distortion.
Okay.
Absolutely nothing else.
Similar to what tubes will do.
Similar to except tubes generate
third order,
fourth,
third,
fifth,
fourth,
sixth, seventh, all going up to infinite.
Yeah, that's right.
I often thought, well, wouldn't it be cool to actually try that and see what happens?
See if you could do
but in a way, it's not what I'm about.
Right.
So it is possible to create perfect second harmonic distortion.
Right.
And you could even change it so that it was either positive or negative.
Interesting.
And you got to change the exact level of distortion.
And you just put all the tube companies out of business.
Well, I'm not sure you would, because there are other things that are going on with it.
I know.
It doesn't hang right with me.
You want to go more for the accuracy.
I want to go
accuracy.
For the accuracy.
But if you want your tubes, like me personally, I love to pair Chord decks with tubes. That's that's my sweet spot. And I mean, I listen also solid state too, obviously right off the TT2 or the Hugo 2. But when I want to kick back and just melt into the music, it's tubes with my Chord, either Hugo 2 or TT2. So
tubes you naturally get warmth.
Always, yeah.
But you lose impact and speed.
You do. And some of them, well, to an extent you lose it with a little bit, with all of them.
With
right?
all of them, yeah. But you certainly lose them with
super warmer
tubes.
ones, yeah.
Yeah, and what I want is super warmth, super brightness, super speed, and super depth.
It's like you want it all. I
want it all.
I love it. That's awesome. Let's see. Hey, Last Rhino, good to see you again, bro. It says, how many people are usually involved in Mr. Watt's listening tests?
Me.
Mr. Watt.
It's just me.
Yeah.
So there are times when I get other people in.
Yeah, like what do you call it? When you bring other people in and then they get other listeners.
Yeah. So, but that's not because I want them to listen to it. That's for me to test my sanity.
Right. Just checks and balances for yourself.
So. Sometimes you do a listening test and the numbers, you know the numbers beforehand because I've done simulations on it. The beauty of working with digital code is that you can digitally simulate beforehand, you can get a digital analysis, you can see things at minus 400 dBs.
Right.
You can then do a listening test to see if that's important or not. And then you hear it and you think, that's just impossible. This can make a difference to the sound.
Right.
So you start to think, is this placebo?
Right.
Is this confirmation bias? Because these things happen. You tell yourself, I've just spent $100,000 on my system.
You're going to be telling
and it sounds so much better. You tell yourself that several times, and then listen, 100%. It just sounds better.
100%.
So when I'm doing
real.
It is.
It's
so
real.
when I'm doing my listening test, I just have to forget I've spent 6 months struggling to get this code to work, and I've got to be completely neutral and just as an observer. So when something extraordinary comes along, then normally I get my son.
That's what I was going to say. I think, you told me when last time we talked about your son is involved with it too, which is cool. It's a family affair. I love it.
It's a family affair. Yep. He's got a good set of ears. He's studying to be a sound recording engineer.
That's right, yes.
And he's got a good set of ears. So he's also been trained so that when he listens to something, he'll be able to describe it in the same kind of way that I describe things. Right. So it'll be about soundstage, it'll be about timbre variation, it'll be about speed, all those kind of things. And so I'll say, listen to this and listen to that. And he doesn't know what this or that is.
Sure.
And just tell me what the difference is. And he'll have to describe what it is. And if it's exactly the same as what I hear, then I know I'm not deluding myself, that it's something real.
Right.
That somebody else. So it's a blind listening test because he doesn't know what he's listening to.
Sure.
And it's always good to ground yourself.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
I mean, yes.
But in terms of, is there somebody that is voicing this or changing the sound to suit what Chord needs? No, I design it so that I am happy with it.
Right.
And all of my products are like that. If 1 million people love the sound of that product, that's great. Well, if one person loves the sound of that product, that's also great.
But you also design them in a way that they will, even if, like you love Filter 2, right? That's your sweet spot. But you also are giving people options. It's not like there's no options. Like you're just stuck with what I want you to hear. To an extent.
To an extent, because I'm in the WTA interpolation filter.
Because you want accuracy.
I could put a NOS in there.
Sure.
I could put other filters in there.
Sure.
You could mess up the sound, and I'm not doing that.
You still have a little variation in sound.
You always need some way to tweak, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get involved in this.
This has tons of variation and capability.
Yeah, and it's something that we'll be migrating with future products.
That's what I was thinking.
And
that's going to be awesome.
I wouldn't have gone to the 3 or 4 months that went involved into the DSB core and evaluating it unless I knew
you could translate.
We could use it in other things.
I love that. That is awesome. I don't know if he can answer this, but we can ask. Will Hugo 3 come in the next few years? Wait and see, probably.
Wait and see.
Take a wait and see.
What I can say is that it's not something I've started work on.
Okay. Well, there you go. Not yet, but
normally it takes about 18 months for products to come through.
Let's see. Great questions, by the way, guys. You guys are asking awesome questions. Why do I think people still listen a lot with 3.5 millimeter. Personally, that would be my answer. I don't know, but
it's the most common.
Still the most common, right? So, what would you like to see, Dairimi? Were you thinking like a 4.4 Pentacon is what you're thinking, or something like that? Maybe that's why, or I don't know. But I know also that the way you guys design your products, because balance, a lot of people like a balanced connection, and there's advantages to a balanced connection. But the way you design your single-ended connections are. You don't need a balanced connection, and that's one thing that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and the other thing is that you couldn't afford to put a Pentagon connector on a Mojo.
Right. Because they're expensive. They're light. You have to license.
Yeah.
Especially if you're getting an authentic one.
Yeah.
They're not cheap.
They're lovely connectors, and we will be putting them on the Ultima DAC.
Right.
So
cool.
there's Pentagon on the Ultima DAC.
So future.
Then it's a case of money is no object in
we're not counting the cents anymore, the dollars or whatever. All right, let's see. What was the next question here? Are Are you, let's see, all right, let me add this so I can read a little easier. Are you using headphones or studio monitors during the listening tests, and which brands? Well, it sounds like B&W is probably one of them.
B&W A23s, D3s.
Okay, beautiful speaker.
Which I drive direct with TT2s.
Okay.
And the Stealths.
Okay, and the Stealths. Cool. And then, you're welcome.
What we also do, or rather what Chord does, is that once they get the pre-production prototypes, they will then do their own evaluations.
Okay.
So they'll listen to lots of different headphones. They'll, more importantly, listen to different USB sources or different sources, find any gotchas.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, because you always need that. Checks and balances to make sure.
I'm playing with a limited number of sources,
right.
So they need to go through all the different sources that you can get on the planet.
Yep.
And compatibility issues.
Right.
So Chord do all that work, and of course the MC regulation, power supply tests.
Right.
So there's a hell of a lot of extra work that Chord are doing.
Exactly.
And then hopefully I don't need to do anything.
Right, because they're handling that already.
Well, I don't need to do any changes.
Yeah, you're I don't want to change anything. I just worked on this the last 6 months. So don't make me change this.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I love it. Let's see. So what time are we at? Okay, we're almost out of time. So I think there's a couple other topics. Something we've been doing for fun. We were talking about music. We're both listening to Nils Fromm, which is ironic. Both listening to it yesterday or last night.
Yeah, Q-Boss.
So, which is kind of like
that's the beauty of Q-Boss. You I've got a few Nils albums, and I thought, let's see what else he's got, and bang it. There was a lot of it there.
I love what he's doing because it's almost like a combination of classical
and
electronic, which is, for me, I've always loved both genres very much.
And it's beautiful music you can work with.
Yes.
Because I spend a lot of my time, when I'm working, the music is on permanently. Right. And you can't play heavy metal.
Yeah.
Because it's just, too much. But that kind of music is just absolutely perfect. And then occasionally you'll get drawn into the music and you're lost for 5 minutes, and then you get back to work.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Or if you just want to escape and not work, you can get lost in that music for hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's quite beautiful. Let me see what else is on my notes here. Have you gone to any cool events or concerts lately? You were recently in Singapore,
correct? Yeah, I was in Singapore for Formula One.
Sweet.
Oh, yeah.
I love watching that Formula One show on Netflix. Oh, it's just so good.
Yeah, so when you're there at the race, you don't actually get to see very much, but you smell the rubber.
Yeah.
You hear the sound of the Formula One cars.
Yeah,
it's completely different to the sound that you get when you hear it on TV.
Right.
Even through a high-end system, it's not the same.
Yep.
And the other big benefit of Singapore is they have fantastic music afterwards. So
got to see some cool concerts.
We had Robbie Williams. We had another couple of big famous US bands whose name escaped me. And they were really good. And on the Friday they had Asian bands, and one of them was a set of half a dozen Japanese girls doing kind of hip hop and sexy dancing music.
Wow. Okay.
Dressed in school uniforms. It was, quite weird.
Very interesting.
And the music actually was really quite enjoyable.
Oh, that's cool.
I really enjoyed it. So, but the nice thing is you've got Formula One. You've got.
It's a production. You got it all.
You've got great music for 2 or 3 hours, and then 10 minutes later you're back in your hotel.
Yeah.
So it's kind of got a music festival vibe.
With racing.
Without the drugs, because it's Singapore.
Yeah, sure.
And you get the comfort of back in a 5-star hotel afterwards without having to sleep in a tent.
That sounds pretty lovely.
I've done it 6 times now, I think. Yeah. So I think my favourite memory was seeing Queen.
Oh, that would be incredible.
That was just amazing. That was just amazing. And just before Queen, they had Kylie Minogue on.
Okay.
And it sounded dreadful.
Oh no.
It was really hard and bright and too loud, and I thought, oh god.
The audio engineer dropped the ball.
It's the same mixing disc, the same setup, and Queen was on next, and I thought it's not going to sound good.
Different audio engineer probably, front of house.
But when Queen came on, it actually sounded bloody good.
Right.
It was.
They're better.
It
They
was,
better not mess that up.
Brian May is just such a fantastic guitarist, and it was so emotional when you were listening to him play. So that's my favourite memory of Formula
That's
One.
cool. I love it. Let's see. We were about out of
You
time.
didn't talk about this.
Oh yeah.
Heat
So we've
sinks.
been doing something for every stream we do today. I brought my audio glossary, which is, you know, some of these terms will pop up in my videos all the time, and then I get people asking what the heck does that mean. So just for fun, I thought I would share, you know, a term out of this for every stream, just to, you know, continually educate. So the one we picked was heat sink, which is a thermally conductive object having high thermal inertia used to draw heat away from a transistor or other temperature-sensitive device.
Yeah.
Talk to us about heat sinks.
So it's funny
This is your world.
It's funny you picked that out because heat sinking is a major issue.
Yeah.
And I mean, with Mojo 2, you're limited by, unless you want to put a fan in there, and no one wants to put a fan in there, you're limited by the physical size. So this can dissipate around 2.5 watts, with it feeling at 38 degrees C. I don't really like going above 38 degrees C.
Right.
So, and that's all down to down to two things: convection currents, so heat coming off, and radiative currents. Sorry, radiative. So it's infrared coming off from the device.
Okay. Sure.
So one of the prototypes I was doing, they sent me some prototypes, and the heatsink was all wrong. And what it was that they hadn't anodized it. It doesn't matter if it's black or silver, but you double the performance of the heatsink by anodizing it.
Okay.
And it's purely with the infrared coming off,
Interesting. Yeah.
radiative cooling rather than convection cooling. It doubles the performance.
Wow.
So I take things apart, put boxes together, put resistors in, measure the thermal resistance.
Right.
That will tell you how much the package will dissipate. And it's rather cool about this anodizing thing that it's as much as 50% in half.
That's crazy.
Just down to anodizing. So it may be white, silver, or black, but it's what the color is at infrared. And you want it to be bright infrared. And we can't see infrared.
Sure.
So that if it's brighter infrared, then it will dissipate more power. And I had another issue with the new scaler that I'm working on. And that was all down to heat sinking and power dissipation. And
It's a big thing.
I made some mistakes on that.
Well, you are human then, after all.
Ah, yes. The mistake was that I didn't calculate beforehand. I just thought, we got this big box, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And
You assume that
it
it's
wasn't.
big enough.
It wasn't.
Yeah. Because
I should've-
heat can play a huge role,
Yeah.
changing everything. Yeah.
So heat in terms of power amplifiers is an issue because of your bias.
Absolutely.
And controlling your bias. So the bias is constant, and doesn't vary with heat, is important because that will change your sound quality.
Right.
So that's something you learn at a very early stage when you're an analog. Because I started off as an analog designer, not a digital designer.
Sure.
I'm self-taught on digital design. Getting bias right and getting the tracking on the output stages, these are really important in terms of performance. So what I try to do is to get it so that you turn the unit on and it works, and it sounds the same as an hour's time or whatever.
Right.
And that's a quality that the DACs do actually have.
Yeah.
But to get that,
It's not easy to get there.
no, there's huge number of parameters that can adjust the sound quality and change it. And the nice thing about when you have something that changes in sound quality when you turn it on, then you know there's something adrift.
Right.
And that the temperature change is just happens to, by accident, give you a better sound quality. It might be it's better if it's cooler.
Sure.
It might. So the fact there's a variation gives you a clue. So you then have to start to find out what's going on, why is it doing that, solve the issue, and then you get much better sound quality because you've eliminated the actual issue.
Right.
And the other benefit is that turn it on, it works. It doesn't change its sound.
Well, that's an important one.
That certainly is.
That's pretty important. Well, Rob, let me just see if there's any other last questions. Hey, what's up, Christopher? And the gang out here is thanking you. Ace of Spades, what's up, buddy? Howdy to you.
Yeah.
And then, so we talked about that a little bit already. No, he uses the DACs with speakers and headphones, Ace of Spades, with both. We talked about a little bit earlier in the stream. And we have to actually jam because we have another one coming up and we're running a little over schedule. But Rob, dude,
Thank you very
always
much.
a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
You're one of my
Thank you.
favorites. I
Oh,
always
thank
like
you.
to see you, and you know, I know that there's a lot of our viewers out there that feel the same way. So thank you so much for spending time. And don't go anywhere. We will be coming back. So this stream will end here in the next minute or so. And then I'm looking at the computer over here. When you guys are over here, I'm doing it again. But
We're both doing it.
We're both doing it. So we'll be coming back though in like a few minutes. We're going to set up for our next stream, which is going to be with Dr. Long from Headphone. So don't go anywhere. So if you have any questions for Headphone, stay right here. And we'll see you in a few minutes. You'll see a new stream. I'll add it to the CanJam 2023 SoCal Impressions thread, which is where you'll be able to find every video as we're putting it up or about to go live. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few minutes. Just keep checking that CanJam 2023 SoCal Live Impressions thread, and we'll see you soon. Thanks again, Rob. Appreciate it. And thank you all out
and
there.
Thank you for such a professional way of doing things. This
Thank you.
This is just wonderful.
I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun for me, so I love this. Thanks, guys. We'll see you guys in a few.